Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Deep within Sufism is the concept of unity. And to understand the concept of unity is a very exalted state, because to understand the concept of unity, you have to become unified. This world is full of duality. This world is full of shadows and full of differences. And to go beyond all of these differences, to go beyond all of these shadows, we must concentrate, analyze, and figure out what unity is. In our bodies, we have many organs. All of these organs are necessary. And when they are all functioning, it creates one unified body. We have many different people in the world with many different forms and many different colors. But there's a unity among them. There's a unity among the bodies in existence. In truth, there is one body. In truth, there is one mother and father. There is one God and one soul. There are no differences. There is one light and one truth. To understand all of this is to understand unity. But to be able to go beyond the physical body that we're all encased in is very difficult. Man has senses. Man smells, he hears, he sees, he tastes, he touches. And all of these senses are contained within this body. And all of these senses are what we use to interact with in the world. Now, when our senses tell us that what we see is real, it's very difficult for man to comprehend that what we see is illusion. So you have people who take their stand that what they see is real and nothing else exists. What they know is real and nothing else exists. What they're able to comprehend with their senses is what exists and nothing else exists. Scientists take this attitude. If you can't prove it, it doesn't exist. If you can't see it, it doesn't exist. Well, in reality, there is this entire world of non-form entities. We call them qualities. And what are these qualities? Love has no form. Compassion has no form. Mercy has no form. But anyone who has ever been in love can tell you the strength of love. Now, this body that we are in, this body is born, has a span of time, and disappears. But love doesn't disappear. Mercy doesn't disappear. Compassion doesn't disappear. Justice doesn't disappear. These things are eternal. They are not subject to the degradation that the elemental things are subject to. They don't disappear the way these things disappear. We have to focus on what are the qualities, what is the truth. Not all knowledge is knowledge. Not every crop that you plant does any good for you. Not every prayer is a real prayer. Not every man is a real man. Not every face that you see is the face of a man. If we don't understand the nature of God, if we don't attempt to analyze and understand the nature of God and understand our connection to God, we are not real people. We are people caught in illusion, living in illusion, thriving on illusion, transfixed by illusion, hypnotized by illusion, and in a very real way, satisfied with illusion, in the belief that that's all that's there. It's only when we transcend Maya, when we transcend all of the illusory forces within the world and begin to understand that there is more to it than that, that we become real. Halaj said, Anal Haq, I am reality. But to become reality, you have to go beyond the first three levels of consciousness. You have to go beyond sense, awareness, and intellect. You have to go beyond mind and desire. You have to go beyond judgment. You have to enter into wisdom. And how do you enter into wisdom? The first thing you have to do is conclude that there's more to this existence than we can see with our eyes, hear with our ears, smell with our noses, taste, or touch. There's a whole other world there that exists outside of the realm of our senses. And this is what doing the kalima is about. This is what doing the zikr is about. This is what the repetition of the names of God are about. When we say Ya Rahman, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahman, or Ya Rahim, Ya Rahim, Ya Rahim, we acknowledge the truth of that quality. We acknowledge the overriding presence of that quality, and we acknowledge that we are looking to incorporate that quality into our being. Why? So that we can come closer to knowing reality, so that we can come closer to knowing God. The world is a show. God has put all of these creations into the world, and our senses sense them. We see them, we smell them, we touch them. But these are veils that Allah has created. All of creation is a veil that hides Allah. We have to be able to see through that. Somehow, we have to be able to become the ones that understand that there is more to this existence than we can comprehend through our senses. So we have to develop an extrasensory perception, a perception that touches the qualities and understands the qualities. And through the incorporation of these qualities into our being, we become altered. We become other than separate, and we begin to become unified. Through absorbing these qualities, our differences disappear. Through absorbing these qualities, unity begins to be understood. We see differently. So instead of seeing colors, we see sameness. Instead of seeing differences, we see sameness. Instead of mine and yours, we see unity. Instead of selfishness, we have the altruism that is from God, the giving nature that is from God. All of these things begin to be understood in a different way. So when we repeat the names of God, when we repeat La ilaha illallah, when we do our zikr, these are prayers of unity. These are prayers that are meant to unite us with Allah. We're not asking for things in this world. We're not asking for wealth. We're not asking for material things. We're asking for union. We're asking to come to know our Lord. We're asking that we be taken on the straight path to the one who created us so that we can truly understand him. And it is in that understanding of him that we become men. Before that understanding comes to us, we are not men. We are more like animals. And the reason is that the first three levels of consciousness are contained by men and by animals. It's only when you reach wisdom that there is a differentiation. It is only man who is capable of wisdom. The animals are not capable of wisdom, and we need to know the difference between man and animals, and we must begin to do what it is for men to do. We must organize ourselves in a way that we understand the difference between right and wrong. We understand the difference between happiness and sadness. We understand birth and we understand death. We understand what will die and what will not die. We have to understand real knowledge, and real knowledge is understanding these things. There is so much superfluous knowledge in the world. There are so many things that people learn that are of no value to their being. Yet they study these with great enthusiasm. They get titles in the world because they study them. They get degrees and they get names such as PhD, a doctor of philosophy in the study of insects, or a doctor of philosophy in the study of plants, or a doctor of philosophy in philosophy. Allah created truth. Religion came along and began to hide the truth. The ocean is vast, and within the ocean, there are so many different things. There are fish, and there are mammals, whales and dolphins. There are rays and there are jellyfish. There are thousands of different kinds of animals within the ocean. And the ocean rolls on and on and on. But the ocean can't clean itself. It can't become pure on its own. It doesn't have the capacity to clean itself. In religion, you have priests and ministers and imams, and they all preach. They all tell you what to do. They say, do this and do that, pray this way and pray that way. But have they cleaned themselves? Have they cleansed themselves? Have they purified themselves? We don't need to look much further than the sexual scandals within the Roman Catholic Church to understand that the nature of priests is not necessarily self-reflection. The nature of priests is not necessarily to find the truth within themselves and make sure they are pure before they preach. And it's this way in all the religions. How can a religion preach hatred and preach murder and preach killing and still call itself hand of Allah, a way of Allah, a way of God. This ability to cleanse oneself, this ability to become pure, this intention to become pure doesn't exist within all men. And unless it exists within man, man cannot find the true way. Man cannot find unity. If you are a sexual predator, you're not in unity. You don't know the difference between right and wrong. You don't know the difference between good and evil. It's not part of you. If you advocate murder or killing of other people, somehow you've lost your way. You don't know the difference between right and wrong. You don't know the difference between good and evil. You've ended up on the side of evil and you call it good. You call it a positive thing to kill people when in fact God never advocated the killing of people. God is transcendent to man's qualities. God is beyond man's qualities. God is this great power. Now, within the earth, there are many, many, many things. There's silver and gold and gems. And there's also magnetic forces. And these magnetic forces can attract iron. They can pull iron. Well, all of these things within the earth attract themselves to us, and we are attracted to them. We are elemental, and we have a connection to the elements within the world. We're attracted to gold. We're attracted to silver. We're attracted to gems. The elements within us are attracted to the elements within the earth. They have a power that attracts us. They have a power that we secede to and that we give ourselves up to. And these things become important to us. And as they become important to us, we give them more and more obeisance. So we fall in love with gold. We fall in love with silver. We fall in love with gems. We fall in love with the things of the world. We become attached to them, and they draw us in. And our life relationship is with these things. We end up with attachments to family, with attachments to people, with attachments to things other than Allah. Now, all of these things have powers, but within every power is the power of God, which is greater than any of these powers. The power of God is within the power of earth. The power of God is within the power of water. The power of God is within the power of fire. The power of God is within the power of ether. The power of God is within the power of air. When we can give up our attachments to those things that are from creation, that's when we can allow the power of God to draw us as opposed to all of these other things. And we will not be able to experience the power of God if we are involved with all of the worldly powers. So in the beginning of our journey, we must cleanse ourselves. We must become pure. Pure of what? Pure of all of the influences of Maya, pure of all of the influences of illusion, pure of all of the influences of the world. And until we become pure of those influences, we cannot take on the qualities of God. The lust for gold, the lust for silver, the lust for wealth, the lust for earthly possessions does away with unity. The lust for those things means we wish to accumulate them for ourselves. means that we want them because somehow we believe that it makes us more, it makes us greater, it gives us power, it gives us control over other things. This, again, is abhorrent to the understanding of unity. We can't have power over others if we have unity. There is an equality in unity. There is a oneness in unity where there is no high and there is no low. There just is the unifying force. Allah gives to all equally. He's like the sun that shines on everyone. He's like the rain that gives to everyone. When the rain falls, it doesn't say, I'm just for this group or I'm just for that group. The rain falls with equanimity. It falls for everyone and to everyone. And like that, we need to begin to understand what that means. Somehow, we have to begin to analyze, scrutinize, and look at ourselves and see what it is that attracts us and what it is that we push ourselves away from. Now, the Sheikh is an integral part of this process because wisdom isn't learned from books. Wisdom is learned from nearness. Wisdom occurs when you are in contact with someone who has wisdom. The amazing thing about the wise ones is that they have been given the ability to take what they have and share it with others. God has allowed his qualities to be given freely throughout the world, but they can only be given by men who have them. Of course, Allah can do anything, and if he wishes, he can overcome all of these things. But the normal course of things is that God has representatives on earth. He had 124,000 prophets. These prophets came with God's words. They came to tell men about truth and about unity. But man, when he heard the words from these prophets, created religions around the prophet and then created separations from one prophet to the other, when in fact they came as a unified force. They came all preaching the same thing. They came all telling us not to separate from each other. But man did the opposite. He separated from each other because man enjoyed distinction. Man enjoyed the feeling of superiority. Man enjoyed fulfilling the egocentric self's idea of grandeur and of importance, and that led away from unity. So all of these qualities, self-importance, power, possessions, these are all qualities that are adverse to unity. These are all qualities that take us away from unity. And we have to understand the difference between all of these qualities. The mind has many tricks, and the mind uses these tricks in the world. And the mind seems to be a great wonder. And the things that the mind creates seems to be a great wonder. So we marvel at new architecture. We marvel at new inventions, cars. We marvel at the skyscrapers in the world. We marvel at all the things that were created out of the mind. But the true marvel is Allah. The true marvel, the true power is Allah. And his qualities are the true marvel in existence, because when we can understand those qualities, we can breach the cycle of birth and death. We can go beyond the cycle of birth and death. And all of these creations that the mind makes in this world can't go beyond the cycle of birth and death. Everything is born and everything dies. And all of the creations that man makes, all of the buildings, they all disappear over time. Go to a dig that archaeologists do and notice that they go through different layers in the earth, and each layer is a different civilization, and they can find 5, 6, 7 layers of civilizations. And what's happened to these civilizations? They've disappeared, they've been covered up by the next group, and so on and so on. They don't have true eternality. They don't have the ability to survive eternally. And this is what God brings into our lives. He brings into our lives the possibility of becoming eternal. And through his prophets and through his ketubs, he tells us what it is that we need to do to understand what it takes to become eternal. And what it takes is to understand unity, and the way we find unity is to understand his qualities. And his qualities have to enter into us. Mercy is a noun, but it's also a verb. And unless it is in action in our being, it doesn't exist. Just because we have a vocabulary that can say mercy, that can say compassion, that can say gratitude, that can say love, that can say kindness, doesn't mean that we understand any of these things. It's only when we bring these things into action that we can begin to understand them. It's only when we begin to give these to the rest of humanity that we can understand it. And the interesting thing is, and we have to really understand this, there is no ending of mercy. There is no using up mercy. The more mercy you can give, the more mercy will come into your being. God cannot be diminished. And no matter how much he gives away, he cannot be diminished. So the qualities of God cannot be diminished. So mercy, peace, benevolence, all of these qualities can't be diminished. So as much of this as you give away in the world, as much mercy as you give away in the world, as much compassion as you give away in the world, we don't diminish compassion. We don't diminish mercy. It can't be diminished because God is not diminishable, and God never runs out of his qualities. So we should give gratefully, we should give happily, and we should know that whatever we give, more will come to replace what we give, and there should be no fear of anything running out. People who desire the world know that there are limitations to how much they can acquire. And so they hold on to things very tightly. And by holding on to things very tightly, they become obsessive and they become difficult people because they're constantly protecting what they have. And in that protection, you build a barrier around yourself. And with that barrier, you separate yourself from the rest of humanity. This is mine, and everything else is separate. This belongs to me, and everything else is separate. And it's the same way with religion. My religion is the one religion that knows the truth, and everyone else is somehow mistaken. God has no religion. God has no philosophy, and God cannot be in any way diminished. And when we can begin to understand that, then we can become free. We can become open-handed. We can become grateful and generous simultaneously. And it is in generosity that we are given. It is in generosity that Allah supplies us. And we all have understandings in our lives to prove this point. When I was asked to go on Umrah, I went with a small group, and it was taken care of by some friends of ours who lived in Saudi Arabia. After I did this, I realized that this was an experience everyone should have. And I was in contact with these people from Saudi, and we made arrangements for more people to go. But these arrangements were made in such a way that really all these people had to do was show up, which was all I had to do. We didn't have to plan. We didn't have to make arrangements. We just had to pack a suitcase, and everything else was taken care of. Well, I helped in the process. But as I helped in that process, I also got to go on Umrah over and over and over again. So as I gave, I was given. As I gave, I was allowed the opportunity to do these things again. This is how it works. As you give, so shall ye receive. And we need to understand that, and we need to believe it. Allah is beyond conception. Imagine an atom, not like the ordinary atoms, but a godly atom. And imagine splicing this atom and being able to look at what's inside of it. And Bawa describes it as when this atom is spliced, inside there are 99 new atoms, all revolving around each other, none of them ever touching. And then if you splice any one of those, you find the same thing again. You find 99 atoms revolving around each other, none of them touching. And then if you splice it again, the same thing occurs again, over and over and over and over. Infinitesimally, there is the 99 revolving around themselves. There is no end to it. And we, for the most part, can't see the beginning of it. But it exists, and it exists like that. So there is no end to God. There is no end to the mystery. There is no end to the understanding. There is no end to our path and to our journey. There is no end to our learning. There is no end to our becoming. There is no end to the thresholds that we have to cross. There is no end to any of this. We are all trying to understand that unity of creation. And if we understood that 99 being with us everywhere, then we can become lost in that, and then we become lost in God, and then the true merging occurs. This is true prayer. This is true knowledge. This is reality. And when we understand the qualities that are God, and we understand that all of humanity shares those qualities, and we understand the soul that was given to man, and we understand that all men share that soul, then we begin to see the world in a different light. We begin to see the world in a different way. No longer do we see differences, but we see sameness. And in that sameness, we see the true unity of existence, and then we know Allahu Ahad. God is one. All is one. All exists as our Lord, and there is no separation. May it come to be that each of us understands that unity, and that we merge with that unity, that each of us understand those qualities, and that we merge in those qualities. May each of us understand that we are temporary, God is eternal, and may we merge with that eternal. May we come to know that reality. May we become that reality. May we all be able to say in truth, Ano Hak, and may it be so for each and every one of us. Ameen, Ameen, Ya Rabbil Alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.